sweetie darling, and this week I'm going to be showing you how to make the Hocus Pocus spellbook out of cake. But before we get into it, of course, I have to do a very exciting winner revealed announcement. So I've told you for the last 2 weeks that I'll be doing the draw in my videos. So I have got everyone's names in 2 separate bowls. I have a YouTube bowl and I have an Instagram bowl. And it sounds more exciting than it is. They are just pink bowls. But what they contain is everybody's names. So I'll do my YouTube bowl first. So this is, I can't remember if I've said it already, this is for the winners of the cake frame minion kit. Okay, so this one is my YouTube bowl. I'm gonna just ruffle everyone's back. I'm just gonna do this sort of thing. I'm so excited, I'm so excited. Okay, ready? Let's just get one here. Okay, and the winner of the first minion kit is Melissa Irvine. Melissa Irvine, congratulations, you have won a minion kit. Okay, and then we have the Instagram giveaway. Same situation, let's jiggle this up. This is very exciting, and I know this is a bit of an old school way of doing it, but it's the only way that I felt like I could make it fair and do it on camera rather than having like a random number generator. That's a bit boring, isn't it? So, old school, like tombola way. Okay. So winner of the Instagram minion kit, oh, I've got so many in my hands. Okay, winner of the Instagram minion kit is Sonia, oh no, it's one I can't, Sonia Nomi 35. It's not, I don't think it's Naomi, unless I've written it wrong. Sonia Nomi 35. I'm so sorry that I can't say your name right, but you have won the minion kit for Instagram. Okay, thank you so much to everyone who entered that. That was very exciting. I'm sorry for everyone who didn't win, but for the 2 of you who did win, congratulations. I'll leave my email address underneath this video. Just make sure you send me your address so I can get those kits sent out to you. And now we will crack on with the Hocus Pocus spellbook cake. To start with, I'm using a square cake and I'm cutting one side of the square cake away to leave a rectangle. The only thing I really want to do to this rectangle of cake is soften off where the spine is going to be. So I'm just using a knife to gently carve away the sharp edge so it's more rounded where the spine of the book would be. You can of course cut this cake in half and add filling if you want to, as we normally would do. I was a bit short on time when I did this, so I skipped that stage and went straight to the crumb coat. So I'm adding a crumb coat of ganache to my cake, and once I've got a thin layer on, I put it in the freezer for about 10 minutes just to firm up. I then bring it out of the freezer and add another crumb coat of ganache to get a really good base. Once I was happy with my crumb coat, I rolled out a long strip of white fondant and I cut it to the depth of my cake. I then used some water to stick this just to 3 outside edges of my cake. Whilst the fondant is still soft, I'm pressing a knife into it with very narrow gaps between it, and it's kind of random. It's just to make it look like pages rather than being completely flat. You can then roll out your fondant for the top and the spine of the book. I did want to use brown fondant for this, but I didn't have any. Because I was short on time, I went for the closest thing I had, and that was brown modelling chocolate, which worked just completely fine, but I would ordinarily use brown fondant here. So I've measured my cake. For the width of my brown fondant, I want to take into account the top of my book and the spine of my book. I then want to add on about 1/2 centimetre, so I've got a lip hanging over the edge so it looks like the front cover of a book. I want the depth of the book and then add on about 1/2 centimetre either side of that as well. Again, so I've got a little bit of overhang which will look like the front cover. I can then use some water to attach this to my cake. I know I've used modelling chocolate, but I'm just going to refer to it as fondant from now on because that is ordinarily what I would be using. So to add some texture to my spellbook, I've scratched up some tin foil and I'm pushing it all over the fondant and it just leaves indents. This is why you haven't really got to worry too much about the finish of this book. You're going to be messing it up quite a lot. I then rolled out some fondant and cut out some really thin strips for the base of the book because I want it to look as if there is a back cover that is matching the front cover. It's a very sneaky trick to make it look like you've got a whole back cover. You can then also use the tin foil on these just to give those a little bit of wear and tear. I then rolled a sausage of fondant and cut out 5 small sections as a detail on the spine of the book. I just flattened the end of each sausage and stuck them on with water. For the top of the book, the effect is almost as if different, I don't know what it is in the actual film, it looks like skin, but that makes me feel sick, but it's like different, let's say leather instead, which I know is still skin, but it's better than the word skin. different leathers have been stitched together. So for that effect, I wanted squiggly sausages that looked like they had some indentations, so as if they had been stitched. So for this, it's just a case of rolling out really thin sausages, pushing them onto the cake and actually pressing them down so they're flat. And I just squiggled these all over and attached some to each other. I then went along each sausage and added little indented lines to them, just gave it a little bit more effect. I then rolled out a rectangle strip of fondant for the detail on the left of the book. I stuck that to the book using some water. Now this detail is all going to be silver, so if you'd rather, you can make these bits and leave them to one side, paint them all silver and then put them on the cake. It is completely personal preference. As I've said a couple of times now, I was short on time, so I just wanted to get everything on there and paint it all on there. It's probably not the most ideal way of doing it. It's a lot safer if you paint everything separately off the cake and then stick them to the cake. I then needed the snake detail down the left hand side, so for that I rolled out a sausage of fondant. I rolled it really narrowly at one end and left the opposite end much wider, and I shaped a rough snake's head out of it. And to do that, I just made the neck a little bit narrower and left the head wider, and then I narrowed the front of that down as well, so it went from narrow to wide to narrow, and it did resemble a bit a snake's head. I then used some water to stick that to the rectangle of fondant, and for the next bit I had to make 2 more of these snakes the same size, and these go in the corners of the book. So for this, you need to knot the snakes up. Now, there is no way for me to explain how to knot these except just look at a picture and work out which bits you loop through where. And I literally just had to stare at a picture, and it was sort of a tongue out moment of like, that kind of thing. So just look at a picture and work it. It's like a pretzel. It reminded me of doing a pretzel when I was doing it. But worst case scenario, just tangle it up a bit, make sure the head's pointing inwards, and then you can put that in the corner of the cake. It should be doable if you're looking at the picture. I then indented a hole for the eye. So for that I used my finger and just pressed in until there was a hole there of a good size and good depth. I then filled this hole using a ball of white fondant. I rolled a much smaller ball of green fondant, flattened that down and stuck it to the top of the eye, and then I rolled a much smaller ball of black fondant, flattened that down and stuck it on top of the green. I then rolled 2 fairly short sausages of brown paste, narrowed at each end so it made a crescent shape, flattened that down and stuck one to the top of the eye and one underneath the eye as an eyelid effect. I then used a tool to go around the edge of this just to get rid of any excess paste that there was. I made a ring of fondant for around the eye and just flattened that down, and then I used a rectangle for the clasp of the book and just 2 small sausages that I flattened down just to cover where I joined the clasp onto each side of the book. I did want to add some dust colour to this book to make it look a bit more worn and leathery. Had I had more time, I would have done this back before I stuck all the snakes and stuff on, and the eye I would have dusted brown all over then, and then had my painted silver decorations and stuck those onto the cake. As it was, I just went for it, so I dusted brown all over and tried to avoid the eye as much as possible. I then made some silver paint using my Rolcom silver and Spiritus Rectificaweni alcohol, and I painted over my snakes, my rectangles, my clasps, all the little silver bits that I needed to cover I did on the cake. And that's it. That is how to make the Hocus Pocus spell book cake. I really hope you enjoyed that video. Fingers crossed we are fully into some sort of Halloween themed baking now. If you are baking or cake decorating this week, make sure you take photos, upload them to Instagram and use hashtag YesDarling, and I will give you a shout out in my stories on Monday. Thank you again so much for watching. Congratulations to the winners of the Minion kit, and I will see you all again next Monday.